Man, the Rif War. Absolutely insane. It was a war of African rebels fighting against European powers, all taking place in Morocco. At this time, the world was in what is known as the interwar period, which essentially just takes place between World War I and World War II. I mean, the interwar period has a lot of crazy stories, but this one always interests me. The Rif War's core themes are focused around rebellion, guerrilla tactics, and opposition to colonial powers. So Europeans have been colonizing Africa for a while, but Morocco had remained mostly independent. It wasn't until Spain and France got involved in Moroccan politics that they eventually took over. On one side, you have the Riffians, natives of the Moroccan mountains. On the other side, you have two European powers, Spain and France, trying to colonize the region. I think we can all agree getting colonized sucks. You get your land taken, your village pillaged, and possibly even your buck broken. The people of the Rif Mountains in Morocco obviously didn't want any of that to happen to them. The Rif War begins with this guy, Abdelkrim. Now, he's part of this larger Amazigh family, and forgive me for my pronunciation. Beni Oryechel? We'll put the name on screen. He is part of this really powerful family in this specific region of Amazigh people, the Rif. And he decides, after a lot of issues with Spain, it is time to rebel. In charge of putting down the Riffians was General Damaso Berenguer, but he really was only focused in the west, mainly in the east where the Riffians were fighting. The real war was his second in command, General Manuel Fernandez Silvestre. He was aggressive, and he insisted on hand-to-hand combat, a real brutal bastard. On the French side, the so-called hero of Verdun, and then later traitor to the French people, Philippe Pétain, led his campaign against the Riffians. For now, the French aren't involved, but they do get involved later into the war when the Riffians cross into their territory. So we'll see Pétain later. The first major event in the Rif War actually begins before. It was in 1912. The Treaty of Fez made Morocco a protectorate of France, but they also split the territory with Spain. This was what caused the earliest tensions. In 1919, General Manuel Fernandez Silvestre attempted to secure Al-Husaymas Bay, which was a very vital point in the Rif. And by 1920, the war was fully blown out. By 1921, he and his forces had surrounded Spanish troops in the Valley of Anual, the greatest defeat in modern Spanish history. Up to 13,000 to 22,000 Spanish troops were either dead, wounded, or missing. So what ends up happening is the Riffians, these guys, they're like scaling cliffs, they're scaling the mountains, they're just sitting in these pockets surrounding this valley where the Spanish are camped up. Issue is, there's only one pass out of the valley, and they start marching in this column out of the valley. Abdelkrim's forces, they're just like slaughtering these guys. They start shooting, they run out of bullets, boom, pull out the swords. Those who survive are running everywhere. They have no sense of coordination. It is a nightmare. And then the native troops who are under Spanish control, right, they start defecting to the Riffian side because they're like, well, I'm not going to die here. I'm going to join you guys. You guys are awesome. And that, to me, is one of the most insane points of the Rif War. After the Battle of Anual, I mean, there really wasn't a lot going on. Small skirmishes here and there, territory swapping hands every day. It was the Rif against Spain. By 1923, the Riffians formally declared themselves a republic under Abdelkrim. General Miguel Primo de Rivera decided to lead a coup, start a whole new dictatorship because the king was so bad at putting down like 5 dudes with one gun between them just south of their mainland. He even wanted to sign a peace treaty with Abdelkrim, but he said, no, just leave our country. And Rivera was like, hey man, can we still stay? No, obviously not, idiot. The large turning point was 1925, when Riffians began to enter French territory. The Riffians took over like, 3/4 of what Spain owned in Morocco, and it was so insane that they went a little crazy. They took back a bunch of territory and decided, well, hey, there's still other parts of Morocco that are controlled by France. They made a lightning invasion into French territory and found out that the French don't mess around. The French were not too happy, and both Spain and France decided to muster up their forces of 100,000 dudes. Guess how many the Riffians had? Anywhere because it kept fluctuating from 9 to 13,000. I mean, come on, guys. Talk about overcompensating with an army. It's like the lifted Dodge Ram with truck nuts of militaries. Yeah, it was not looking good for 5 dudes with a gun. A year later in 1926, Abd al-Karim had reached the height of his power, and then later that year he lost it all. The Rif War ended with Spanish forces taking the prize Al Husaymas Bay in an amphibious landing, which was like pretty much D-Day. It was literally the first of its kind, fielding both tanks and air support for ground troops in the invasion. Fortunate part for the Riffians was that even though Abd al-Karim was fighting really, really hard, they couldn't do a lot. His territory was just dissolving in front of him, man. He even lost his hometown of Ajdir, and it was because the Franco-Spanish forces were just too much to handle. By 1926, it was like, well, what am I going to do about it? So instead of seeing all of his men get shot and stabbed and blown up by tanks and shit, he was like, yeah, no, I'm going to surrender. But he was pretty funny about it. He was so cheeky that he decided to surrender to the French rather than the Spanish. Rubbing a little salt in the wound. In my opinion, the Rif War is one of the most interesting wars and really time periods in history. It's a great example of rebellion and guerrilla tactics against a much larger, much more organized force. Well, that is until, the coup back in Spain. The most important part to take away from this, at least in my opinion, is that if you have a lot of gusto, you have a lot of guts, some chutzpah, you can really do anything, man. Well, that's that for the Rif War. Maybe muster up some chutzpah yourself and hit that subscribe button. Have a good one, and I'll catch you later on Blue Chair.